touchdown.
The route, and Randy Moss, without even really being able to run, as he shoots the moon to the
pass, pumps to the left, 8 seconds left. He gets away from the pressure, fires to the end zone. It's caught! It's Greg Lewis! Oh my heavens! Greg Lewis's first catch has given the Minnesota. Ball's out, picked up by the Vikings. Chelsea getting ready to throw for the race. Way ball, Chelsea. No flags. Touchdown, Minnesota. Steps into it. Pass is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Vikings win it!
4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of House Calls with SKOL Doc. This is SKOL Doc here, aka Dr. Alexander Lawson, brought to you today by Minnesota Sports Talk. I'm here with Dave. Dave, how you doing, my man? Are you through the 5 stages of grief yet?
Yeah, I think I'm in the SKOL Doc emergency room, man. I think we got the SKOL emergency doc today, and we're doing a little earlier show than we normally do, and maybe we'll have two in a week for the first time, which is what's happening. So that's great, but not so great is I'm in denial. No, Anyways, it's like I said this the other day or the last show I did, and I was like, well, we really weren't expecting JJ to start. This may not have affected win-losses with us, but what it really did hurt was it may be set back his development. Mental reps are good, but being on the field is even better. And just the fact that he's going to miss, the next 2 preseason games, and he looked so good the first game. I actually was planning on doing an apology video for giving him a B. I reevaluated my thought process on it, and I could definitely give him, like Justin did last week, a B plus at least, because of the way he came back from the mistake, from the interception, and then the almost fumble, throwing that touchdown right after it. I definitely could easily give him an A minus like you did, or a B plus. And I was going to do an apology video. Sure enough, the news came out, and he's not going to play. So,
you know what? I'm going to amend my grade too. I give him an A minus after watching JT Sullivan's breakdown of him on the QB School, which is, if you haven't seen that, go watch it after this video. Dan Orlovsky had a film breakdown of him as well as Chase Daniel. After watching their breakdown, gave him a solid A, if not A plus. He blew me away, and that makes this hurt even more. You know what I mean? So we're Vikings fans. We can't have nice things. This is the way of the world. But hey, I'm here tonight to calm everybody down and talk about JJ's injury and his recovery and the surgery that they did, and to let everybody know that the overall arching plan is still in place and the kid's going to be okay. This year, when you look at it, maybe it's a little bit of a rationalization, but this team was never going to be a Super Bowl team. JJ was probably going to come in halfway through the year at some point, get some valuable reps. But this is not by any means going to falter his career going forward. So let me jump into it. JJ McCarthy tore his meniscus, and we all saw the tweets. It depended on the surgery that they were going to do regarding his timeline to come back. Now, the meniscus is a spongy type of material in the knee. It's a modified piece of cartilage, but it is not true cartilage in the knee, and it's meant to provide shock absorption in the knee. Now, it's really important because if you remove the meniscus, you will end up with arthritis later in life. In fact, studies show that if you remove more than 10% of the meniscus, you're going to get osteochondral lesions, which is wear and tear of the cartilage, which leads to bone-on-bone, which is osteoarthritis, and you will be a candidate for a knee replacement in the future. Now, this is incredibly important for someone like JJ McCarthy because that's the type of injury that could shorten a career by 5 years in the NFL. So, in my opinion, going into it, I had an idea that they were probably going to lean towards repair because he's a 21-year-old kid and he has a lot of career left in front of him. The only way that I saw them doing a meniscectomy or shaving just a little bit of the meniscus to get him back quicker was if it was truly a lateral or medial lesion, meaning it was towards the outside part of the knee and it was less than 10% of the meniscus, which would give him a better chance of avoiding damage to the knee in the future. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for us, but that's just fine. So it was a minimal invasive scope procedure where 2 small incisions were made to the knee, and they put a scope in there, and they put a repair instrument in there to put a form of suture into the cartilage that is the meniscus and repair the tear. Now, it's not a very invasive procedure. Some people think just because it's a 4 to 6 month return to sport recovery that it must be this highly involved surgery. It's really not. The reason it takes so long to recover is just because the blood supply to the meniscus is quite poor. So if you play on it too soon, it will fail. So that's the reason it's going to take a while to come back. But the good news is recurrence rate of re-tearing that meniscus is relatively low. It's about 20%, 1 in 5. Now, that data looks at basketball players in addition to football players. When you think about the brutality that basketball needs have to go through with players like Derrick Rose, who's had issues with his meniscus, he's got a 40-inch vertical and he's jumping countless, multiple times a game, where that's not really the NFL quarterback's job. Another positive, I believe this was his right knee. The left knee is more so going to take a lot more rotational force on the quarterback as he rotates around the plant leg. So that's another positive. And I think, and we don't have studies on this, but I think that should lower the recurrence risk of having another injury to his meniscus. But if he does have a re-injury to the meniscus in a couple of years or so far, some point down his career path, he's likely a candidate for a shaving procedure at that point. It's unlikely they would elect to repair it again. So you're looking at a shorter recovery in the future, although he would be at risk for developing osteoarthritis. So long story short, the procedure, and one more thing to bring up is that people are kind of scared about the Sharif Floyd surgery, and that was just a freak accident.
That was
terrible. Don't worry about that. That's not going to happen to JJ McCarthy. In fact, we already heard that he underwent successful surgery and that he's on his way to recovery. So don't worry about that. Put your concerns, aside. JJ's going to heal up. He's going to be back throwing footballs in the near future. He's not going to be cleared for running, jumping for quite some time, but we'll probably see some videos of him throwing a ball and being around his teammates and getting those mental reps throughout the year. And, the plan for 2025 is still in place, and this team should be ready to pop next year.
Now, I already feel the IQ on the channel going up even more, even after our last show, based on what you
this is what I bring to the show, man. This is why you brought me on.
I'm like, wow. My thought one was I didn't even think of Sharif Floyd, but that was almost malpractice. So what happened to him? It was bad. They went in and completely did a different surgery than he agreed to.
Yeah, I haven't heard if they settled that, by the way.
Yeah, and I always give credit to Sharif Floyd. He once tweeted that he bled purple. He still doesn't hold ill will of the Vikings, which is great. Now, what happened when Adrian Peterson had a meniscus tear? How different was that? Because he was out like 90 days.
Yeah, so they repaired, and that guy is freaking nature.
He's just Wolverine then, right?
Yeah, he heals incredibly fast. But here, you know what? His repair was probably towards the outside part of the knee where the vascular supply was very good. We know Adrian Peterson heals abnormally quickly anyways. So he came back quick, and it's possible that JJ has a similar thing. I think Jalen Ramsey for the Dolphins, he had a repair. He was back around 3 months. So he came back ahead of schedule.
And with JJ, there's no need to rush him back because
and the Vikings are going to be careful with him. I don't think they're going to rush him back.
And so that's probably why they just said, "Hey, don't even worry about coming back this year."
I mean, look at it this way: if the Vikings you can look at any scenario. If the Vikings are terrible, heading into December, why bring JJ back?
It wouldn't make any sense
to play him in that scenario. If the Vikings are great and they're winning a lot of games, why rush JJ back?
Yeah, because we're winning. Same Darnold's comeback player of the year.
Right. So I don't really see a scenario where he's back and playing for the Vikings this year.
Now, let me ask you this. The risk of it tearing again, does it heal usually pretty well? Go with that. What's the risk of it, having a similar or a setback, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's really low. So it's less than 1 in 5. And again, that took into not just football players, but basketball players as well. So it's probably even lower than that, to be honest with you. I would place the recurrence risk at probably 15%, somewhere in there. And that's at a 10-year study. So I would not be worried about it recurring.
Gotcha. And how now the fact that it doesn't seem like anybody really knew when it happened. Like, do you feel like this could have been something that had been lingering, and now that he was going full speed, he started to feel the soreness? Like this may have happened from previous, play and not during that game.
I don't know, to be honest with you. It may have. Those types of things at the combine are usually going to leak if they find it, and everybody undergoes an MRI at the combine. So I would guess that it probably happened at the game. Considering we never heard anything about knee soreness during training camp practices until the game. So my guess is it probably happened during a play of the game.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I have a torn meniscus. No one ever wants to fix a guy that's it's not going to be playing sports. You just go live with that, and it's sore all the time. I couldn't imagine going and playing a 15-year career with a torn meniscus the rest of your life. You definitely need to repair it, or it's just gonna linger, and it starts to get really tricky, and you do feel, you start to feel pain if exercise and stuff like that. So I could imagine. I know why you would do it. I know why they would go and do the full repair and fix it and just get him up, get him healthy again, and not do the the trim. I don't think there's a need now. I don't think there's a need now for him. We got Sam Darnold for a reason. Everybody knows I'm his biggest fan, Sam Darnold. But all kidding aside, but I felt like it didn't cost us games this year. It didn't cost us games this year. It was an exciting thing to think about, of him probably playing this year, getting to see him in a real game. But that means we were probably losing. And my hope is Sam Darnold, Nick Mullins, with a really good defense. We won't have to try to outscore people like we had to do last year late in the season. That these two guys can make us really competitive. And I feel like Sam Darnold is going to have his biggest year this year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And to one point about fixing it now, you don't want to play on a torn meniscus because you can worsen the tear, and then it can develop to a point where repair becomes tougher, and you may have no option but to cut out the tear, which again leads to poor outcomes and could shave years off of his career. So they made the right decision.
Do you have any familiarity with why Dan Marino had such bad knees, or other players that had bad knees? And I know. Let's go with that. Did you ever have any knowledge of the history like Dan Marino, because he played his whole life, it seemed, with bad knees?
Yeah, I don't, to be honest with you. It's possible that he was playing with a torn meniscus for a while and they just never caught it, never fixed it. That'd be my guess. Otherwise, people do just develop like severe bursitis in their knee or joint capsule inflammation. And there's really no treatment for that other than RICE therapy, which is rest, ice, compression, elevation, knee compression sleeves, anti-inflammatories, cortisone injections, things like that. So tough to, I don't know for sure on Dan Marino. I'd have to do more research on that to see if anything.
Well, and we got kind of a history like Sam, what's his, our former quarterback,
Bradford.
Sam Bradford. So Sam Bradford had degenerative knees. Is that something that you would consider a degenerative thing if we didn't fix it?
Yeah. So again, degenerative, like arthritis, knee condition, it's osteoarthritis. So it's bone on bone. So gotcha. I think Sam, coming out of college, had procedures done in his knee, right? He had torn his ACL, torn his meniscus. So that's what I'm talking about, where taking out the meniscus can lead to swelling and pain in the knee to where he couldn't. Well, he was out for like
he was a shell of himself.
He played week one
against the Bears. Yeah, when he tried to come back.
So he played week one and he played his ass off, and we didn't, never thought that he got injured. And then I think he was out until about week 5 when they played the Bears. Was that right? They tried to bring him back.
I forget what week it was, but they tried to bring him back,
and he couldn't move.
Looked terrible.
He was a sitting duck in the pocket. they put in Keenum at that, and they somehow won the game.
Brought it back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keenum played the second half and brought us back.
So Soldier Field games. I live in the backyard here of Chicago, 30 minutes away from Soldier Field, and I will not go back to that stadium because those games just are ass. Like every time the Vikings play at Soldier Field, it's the ugliest game. I don't care if we win; it's an ugly game. The Bears fans there just suck. But anyways, here and there.
Now you're going to talk about other injuries that we had.
Yeah, so let's talk about Jordan Addison's injury. That news broke that Jordan Addison went down, was carted off the field, and everybody's just like, are you kidding me? Like, what the hell is going on here? It's like there was a hilarious meme going on where there was a stick figure, and it was like God, why, why us? And then God responded like, how are you still alive? Like with everything that they're throwing at us.
I see the memes of the kung fu guys hitting themselves in the nuts.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's our life right now.
This is
or
Vikings that guy
everybody's
breaking his leg on the football field. This is Vikings at practice. It's like, oh my God.
So I saw the video, and I don't like being the guy that tries to diagnose stuff based on videos, but it looked like a high ankle sprain to me. That's what it looked like. Or at the very least, it looked like an eversion injury where your foot kicks out rather than in, like when you roll your ankle, it kick the other way. So that could lead to either a lower ankle sprain with the deltoid ligament injury or a high ankle sprain in my mind. If there was a fracture, such as a fifth metatarsal Jones fracture or an ankle fracture, they would have told us immediately. And Kevin O'Connell would not have called it, like no big deal, kind of like he did. Now Kevin hasn't put a timeline on it, and I'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, so Zimmer was the tweak guy. Kevin was the routine soreness that turned into season-ending surgery. But
oh God,
now you got to feel for coaches. They don't know yet. You know what I mean? What's going on? And then the MRI comes back negative, or comes back with a torn meniscus, and now Kevin's a bad guy because he was trying to be optimistic and he was wrong. It happens to me. I'm wrong a lot too, guys. Like,
you use the word devastated. You guys everybody's devastated just like us.
I order MRIs all the time because it's a sensitive test, and if I don't know exactly what's going on, I'm not sure if maybe it's a stress fracture, maybe they got a neuroma or something going on in there. Let's get an MRI, and I'm always careful now not to tell the patient what I think it's this, because 60% of the time you're going to be wrong and you're going to find out what the real problem is in there. But anyways, back to Jordan Addison. It's looking like an ankle sprain. We're hearing that it's he's going to avoid major timeout, which is good. If it's a high ankle sprain, you're typically looking at about 4 to 6 weeks out, okay, which is going to place his week 1 availability at jeopardy. If it's a low ankle sprain, we're talking about 2 to 3 weeks typically. So we'll be really close to that week 1, but probably playing week 1. His functional availability, if it's a low ankle sprain, will be variable. Usually it's about 80% effective, if not 100%. So not every ankle sprain is created equally. There's 3 grades to an ankle sprain. Grade 1 is attenuation, which means stretching of the ligament. Grade 2 is partial tearing of the ligament. And grade 3 is complete rupture of the ligament. Now, with increasing grade, we're going to have a longer time to return because you're going to have more swelling to deal with, and you have to get that swelling down to the point where you're comfortable enough to make cuts and go out there and play. So what they're going to do right now is put Addison in a boot, which we saw that, allow him to use crutches until he has lessening pain, so where he can walk comfortably. And they're probably going to put a compression wrap on him to get the swelling down. He's probably going to be out for a solid week away from football activities before he can even start with some of this therapy. They'll work on him to get the swelling down, but in terms of mobility and strength, it's probably going to take about a week to get going. And they're going to ramp that up. And as soon as they deem that he's comfortable enough to return to a football field and make the cuts that he needs to do, he'll be able to do so. It's just the timeline question is, we're probably looking at about 2 to 6 weeks, depending on the severity of what I deem is most likely an ankle sprain.
Yeah. Now, with grade 2, is that a surgical thing, or is that necessary, or is that something that can be healed?
Good question. So low ankle sprains are not surgical, and whether they're acute, they're not surgical. You just got to let that calm down to get back to sport. High ankle sprains can be surgical, though. If it's a grade 3 high ankle sprain, what a high ankle sprain is you have the 2 bones coming down in your leg. You have your tibia bone, there's over here, and you have your fibula bone, okay? And in between those bones, you have a ligament holding them together. When that ligament ruptures, those bones are going to try to splay. Okay. They're going to try to separate like this. And that's dangerous because those are literally what's holding your ankle together. Okay. You cannot play on that. Now, it can take a full 3 months to heal a grade 3 high ankle sprain, which is what we experienced with Marcus Davenport last year, right? So there's a tightrope procedure that you can do where you drill across the tibia and the fibula bone and you place a tight fiber wire between them. You tighten it and then you tie it so that those two bones are tied together and they do not separate. All right. And you can get back to sport quicker that way. So, that's something. I don't think Addison's going to need that based on what Kevin Connell's told us so far. So that's good news. But to answer your question, low ankle sprains are non-surgical. High ankle sprains usually non-surgical, but can be treated with surgery if they're severe enough.
Any other bad news you want to talk about?
Blake Cashman's currently out with a laceration to his finger. They sewed that up. That's going to take 10 to 14 days for that to heal. He'll probably be out of football activity for 10 days. They may wrap it up towards the end, let him get back on the field, but stitches usually come out about 10 to 14 days, then he'll be fine.
Yeah. And he's a veteran and not his job's safe and everything. So
yeah,
I almost want to wrap those guys up in bubble wrap anyways. Him and any of the free agent vets that we brought in. I'm like, just don't even play him. I'm like, I don't want to see him out there. I want him for the season. Now, how do you feel like with replacements? Talk about how you feel about Sam Darnold taking over it. He doesn't have a fire below him now. He's the guy. Nick Mullins is our backup. How do you feel about how he'll play now that he doesn't have to look over his shoulder? He doesn't have the fire beneath him.
I don't think it matters to Sam, to be honest with you. And I feel the same that I felt before JJ's injury, that Sam Darnold should have the best year that he's had in his career. And it's up to him to prove to us how good that can be. Let's talk a little bit about the practices in Cleveland. Yesterday, they had a really tough practice offensively. And the Cleveland defense was getting on Sam, calling him 1 for 12, just giving a hard time because he was not having a good practice at all. Now, thankfully, he did respond much better today. He had a much better practice today. And the defense for both days was terrorizing the Browns' first offensive unit. And so I think this defense is going to be legit. In terms of Sam Darnold, I mean, he's got a chance to make himself some money next year. Let's look at a place like the LA Rams. Matthew Stafford's probably not back next year. If Sam plays well enough, could go over to the Rams, same system that the Vikings are running. Maybe they pay him a nice contract to, bridge the gap over there. Well, maybe they draft a quarterback if McVay's going to stay over there. So, I'm looking way ahead, but I mean, there's an opportunity for Sam to make himself some money in 2025.
Yeah, he's only 20. He'll be 27, or I don't think he's 27 yet. And he coming off a year where we were talking about on Wednesday night whether or not who would be a comeback player of the year for the Vikings. I'm saying, well, Sam Darnold could be comeback player of the year for the NFL because, I mean, he was a first-round draft pick and, was a starter in the league, and then he, lost, became a backup and at two different, lost his starting job at two different, cities, and then he became a backup, and now he's a starter again. And if he has a decent year, he could be, comeback player of the year and show enough to, he won't have like the biggest, he could make $30 million next year, 35, absolutely. $40 million if he comes out and balls out.
He just has to play point guard. Use Jordan Addison, use Justin Jefferson, use Hawkinson when he comes back. Just play point guard, use Aaron Jones.
And that's my next question is, Jordan Addison coming out. Do you feel like Jalen Naylor's up to the task to be wide receiver too? Because I think he's solidifying himself as 3, and he played well enough. I mean, he was the number 1 receiver on that first unit was starting the game, and it looked like he can carry the weight. How do you feel about it?
I absolutely do. I think Naylor's going to shine. If he stays healthy, he's going to shine. So sky's the limit for that kid. I think that he's going to make a name for himself. People are going to learn about him. I listen to a lot of fantasy football guys. I'm a big fantasy football player, and they're all shitting on Sam Darnold. They don't think that there's a chance that he has even a remotely good season. They cite, the low touchdown numbers and everything that he's had in the past, but they don't talk about the context of his career. And he's got weapons, he's got an offensive line.
Running game.
He's
hopefully.
I don't know about that. Apparently the running game looked pretty
I'll
bad
wait to
against
see what Aaron
Cleveland.
Jones looks like. Let's do that.
Let me say this. We're really hoping that Aaron Jones is going to save the entire running game. And I love Kevin O'Connell. I really do. But I'm not sure that guy knows how to make a solid running game. And I think the reason for that is, remember his saying, it comes from McVay, the illusion of complexity. He wants everything to look the same. And a great example from that was he got a JJ's crossing route that he threw to the left sideline, is the one that he got popped as he was letting it go during this last preseason game. And the wide receiver, I think it was Sherfield, jumped out to the linebacker, looked like he was going to block him, and it froze the corner that was covering the person he threw the ball to on the crossing route. I think it was Tristan Jackson. That just shows like the illusion of complexity. Even their play action passes look exactly like the run, right? They want everything to look the same. But that goes to the point where it's like, I think that sometimes they're a little too cute. This is just my opinion. And they're not enough just smash you in the freaking mouth. The run game needs some of that. Everything tries to be finesse with like the zone running game. And if remember last year, McVay scrapped the zone running game in LA and they said, screw this, we're going to go power. And they started running the shit out of the ball with Kyren Williams there. I think we need some of that, man. Just figure out
I would like it.
What can your offensive linemen do? Exactly. What is your offensive line good at? Do that. Run that shit, because it's got to get better.
Now, linebacker, obviously, talking about Cashman, middle linebacker is not the deepest position that we have. It's pretty thin.
Who has deep linebackers, though, in the NFL? You know what I mean?
Yeah. But you only need one, really. Otherwise, it's not like you need two on the field anymore.
Yeah.
And, Ivan Pace Jr. can fill that pretty well. And
I like our top two. I think they can both wear the green dot. I think they're both excellent players. I agree with you. There's nobody behind them at all. But, show me a team that has, like, good middle linebacker depth that doesn't really exist.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's like a dying breed right now. Now, any thoughts, anything else you want to talk about tonight?
Just going back to the double practices there in Cleveland, I was really concerned after the first practice that this offense was going to struggle. And, unfortunately that Justin Jefferson was maybe in for a down year, because if he's going to get triple covered and Sam Darnold's not going to get him the ball, I was a little bit concerned. But it was nice to see that they had a bounce back day today. Pretty much the whole team seemed like they had a bounce back day, which was nice. So that's pretty much it. But did you have any takeaways from the double practices in Cleveland?
No, man. No, I'm good.
All right, man.
But it is good that they bounce back. I do worry that
Lewis Dean had a big pass breakup. You see that?
What's that?
Lewis Dean had a big pass breakup. Almost intercepted the ball.
Comeback player of the year.
Hey, who wants to trade for him? He's available. Come get him.
Hey, that's a good point. Let me ask you this. So, would you rather have a 10-year veteran taking up the fourth safety spot, or would you like to still see an extra year of another year of Lewis Dean?
Who's the 10-year veteran? You mean Bobby McCain?
Yeah.
I'd rather have Lewis Dean over Bobby McCain.
I want to, I got 2 years left on Dean, for sure. I'm like, I would like to at least, I want to give him a shot. Rather than having a veteran in the fourth spot in the safety, I would rather see a younger guy take that role.
Yeah, I won't be pissed if they cut him or if he stays. Whatever happens.
Yeah,
but,
I'm not going to cry in my soup or anything.
Yeah. But I want to end on this today, Dave. I think this is a good question for you. With all the shit that got shoveled into Kevin O'Connell's lap this offseason, if he goes out and he gets this team to win 10 games, is he coach of the year?
It would take a lot to beat him. It would take a lot to beat him. I mean,
he's got to get him to
I felt like he got shafted. I don't think Dayball should have won it over him the first time. He won 13 fucking games.
It's New York.
Like with the 31st worst defense in the league. I mean, how do you not win it with 13 games as a rookie coach? And then Dable wins it with 10, and it was picked before. And it's not because of the playoff game, but I don't know. What do you
New
have
York
to do?
media. It's got to.
What do you have to do, man?
I don't know.
I guess it's a makeup call, right? It'll be a makeup call. He wins, but yeah, you have someone die, you lose your first round pick, the first time ever a first round rookie since '67 or since the Super Bowl era that has missed his entire rookie year.
Mekhi Blackman tears his ACL.
What's that?
Mekhi Blackman tore his ACL. He lost another starting.
So you lose
corner. 2
of your top 4 corners in the beginning of the year, or before the season even starts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he'd definitely be in the running. He wins 10 games. Yeah, definitely makes the playoffs. He is, definitely in the running. I think 10 games can make the playoffs easy.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, let's end it there tonight. This was SKOL Doc, House Calls with SKOL Doc, brought to you by Minnesota Sports Talk. Signing
Emergency
off.
room version.
Yes, sir.
SKOL
Always on call. SKOL Vikes.